This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Planning and Zoning for October 2nd. We have I guess you may announce that anybody here for the Slade School. The Slade School is off, so the public hearing for the billboard will be up first, be on a public hearing. So if there's anybody here for the Slade School, will not be heard tonight. Anyone else here, there's gonna be a time limit put on how long you can speak because we have so many people. 3 minutes is what we're gonna try to do. It's 3 minutes. Please get to one saying for all, please. Don't just come up and say the same thing over and over again. You know, your attorney will speak for you. But in any event, let me get the meeting going. Out to my extreme right over here is Andy Belalacca, our town engineer, and Alan Fredrickson, our land use administrator. To my left is Katanya, he's our court reporter. Next to her is our staff secretary. And that
Rod Williams, alternate, Kansas City tonight. Jim Giletti, regular member.
which I didn't say, is Vern Carlson, I'm the chairman of the commission.
Paul Wyman, Vice Chair.
Brian Cummings, regular member.
Mark Parisi, alternate.
Okay, so we have everybody sitting here on this here. Mark will be the only one that isn't sitting on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, good. So we have everyone here. Okay, so this will be, we're gonna have, you wanna sit in for secretary, you wanna sit in?
I'll sit in there, thanks.
Okay. Okay, then, is there any changes to the agenda that I haven't talked about now?
Nothing that you haven't spoken about. So the Slade School number P2315S and P2315 have been withdrawn by the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Okay, very good. Okay, we'll get going first off here with the, I'll have Brian Cummings will sit in for being secretary tonight. And for that, Brian, if you're reading the call for the first public hearing that we have here, and the only public hearing.
Okay, the first public hearing is P 23-17, continuation of the application of DFC of Giles Avenue LLC applicant, proposed amendment to the North Haven zoning regulations to add section 8.15 to create a billboard overlay district in the IL 80 and IG 80 zoning districts. The proposed amendment is on file in the Land Use Office and the Office of the Town Clerk.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Mr.
Dennis?
Chairman, members of the commission. For your record, my name is Dennis Senavivo. I'm an attorney at the Senavivo Law Firm, represent the applicant. Before you this evening, to my left is Thomas DiMartino, who is a principal in the applicant entity. To his left is Chang Shen, who is our expert on lighting. We wanted to address some of the questions that were left unresolved from the last meeting and public hearing. Passing out of exhibits is Wayne Violet.
Thank you, Wayne.
Excuse me, nobody can hear you back here. Can somebody speak up, please?
This is for a magnifier. I'll talk about it.
Did you read it?
They asked back there to speak up because they can't hear.
Okay,
So Dennis has to,
good enough.
everybody has to keep their voice up.
Speak it up.
So again, what I'm doing is introducing the principals who were, 3 of us were here at last meeting. Cheng to my far left is here tonight. He's specifically here to address any concerns and explain concerns about lighting. And one of the issues I thought brought up by Commissioner Williams last time was the question of nits and foot candles. And it was a good question. So we've got Cheng to explain the distinctions, similarities, and how they affect regulations of the sort. Mr. Chairman, again, because we've gone through, I think, a pretty extensive presentation last month, what I wanted to do was not go through the whole thing again, unless one of the commissioners would like to hear that. I suspect not. So what I wanted to do is just go through, I mean, there were some neighborhood comments, there were some questions that came from the commission at the end of the meeting or through the meeting, and I wanted to address those specifically. I know that there are members of the public, I understand, who will be here to speak at a public hearing, either in favor or against. I'm going to ask Mr. Chairman, and maybe from the applicant's perspective, we'll have a few people talk, but we have quite a few people, as I understand it from my clients, that are here to show their support. Perhaps at some point we can take a show of hands to indicate, who's here and how they feel about the particular application. And the other thing I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is just save maybe 5 minutes at the very end and just sort of summarize an answer to a question that was in the American Record Journal article from Commissioner Giletti about what things have changed from 3 earlier applications, one of which have been denied and 2 of which have been withdrawn. I had a little handout just to go over those, just a summary of the things that we've tried to provide to you to give you an idea that this is not a typical application coming in from some national concern that just has drafted up a fairly vanilla regulation, given it to you and said, we want this approved so we can make a lot of money. This is regulations I pointed out in our presentation last month that Mr. DiMartino engaged my office probably a year ago. We started drafting, looking at regulations actually throughout the country. They come up with something that would be acceptable, that had the sorts of filters, the bells and whistles, all the protections in it that I think you and I would want if I was sitting in your shoes. So I just want to go through that as a final summary. With that,
By all means.
I'm going to have Wayne Violet just go through and show you one of the concerns that have been expressed by neighbors was, what would be the impact on residential districts or residential properties? And we wanted to show, with the filters that are in that regulation that I'm sure you've read a couple of times now, that we wanted to make certain of all the things that we considered to make sure that it did not negatively impact on the residential properties of this beautiful town. So Wayne's going to show you sort of the locations that we've been talking about from the beginning.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Attorney Senaviva. Thank you, Commission members. My name is Wayne Violet, Senior Landscape Architect, Bowler. Address is 65 LaSalle Road, West Hartford, Connecticut. What was passed out before was mentioned, but it's all of the exhibits that we're showing here on board. I will twist and turn so all sides of the room can see these respectfully, so we can line easels around the room just out of respect of the room. So what we're going to start is in plan view, just as Dennis had mentioned. We are going to start with a sheet titled CA00. This is just an overall sheet just to orientate ourselves with the application and the sheets that we're going to be following up. There, as we mentioned last time, there are 3 distinct zones where the BOD, or the Billboard Overlay District, is identified in this application. The north end, which is located on the map, this is adjacent to Valley Service Road, Washington Ave properties. That's the north end of the site. The central location for the BOD district is located just shown here on the exhibit. This is adjacent to Giles Ave, in between Montouise, as we had discussed last time. And the southern piece of the BOD district is located at the southern border adjacent to New Haven along the Universal Drive area. As we had discussed last time, there are 13 parcels that make up the BOD district. One thing that we are showing here on these exhibits, and commission members, if you have any issues with seeing this, I'm partially in the way, feel free to let me know and we can certainly reposition for you. The exhibit we're looking at right now is CA01. This is the north end of the BOD district. What we have done from last meeting to this particular meeting is on the eligible parcels within the BOD district. In this area, there are 5 eligible parcels. What we have shown is potential locations per the regulations that are part of this application where a billboard can be potentially located. So in this section, the north end of the BOD district, we have located potentially 4 locations on this north end. We have 2 located on 200 Valley Service Road. We have 1 located at 91 Washington Ave and 1 located at 63 Washington Ave. This is not a site plan review. These are approximate locations, but per the regulations, there would potentially be available for 4 locations at the north end of the site. We have on these exhibits also identified eligible parcels that, based on the required 750
It's over
foot,
3 minutes.
750
He
foot.
gets to
Gonna
speak.
do the three-
Hold it, he's the applicant.
No, take it easy, Joe. We'll run the meeting.
So we're getting 3 minutes, but they're getting as much as they
No,
want.
that-
Yes.
look, they gotta present the application.
We heard all this last month.
Joe,
15 seconds.
let him do. You're not gonna win.
Thank you, we'll keep it brief. So on the parcel, which is 100 Valley Service Road, we have identified that as an eligible parcel, but based on required distances within the regulations, that is really not feasible when we have laid out potential locations. The point is, of the 13 parcels that make up the BOD proposed district, only 7 potential locations can be feasibly allocated for digital billboards. So this is the north end. Moving to the next exhibit, which this is CA02A.
Wait, just a question, what's
Yeah.
the dash on CA01?
Yes.
The dash circle in the middle, what is that?
Yeah, we have 2 identifications of yellow circles on the exhibit. These are 750-foot radiuses per the proposed regulations.
Yeah.
The solid circle represents an area around a eligible or likely or feasible billboard location. The dash circle happens to be around a billboard location that would not be feasible due to site distance. And we have an area identified on these exhibits with a cross hatched in red.
Mhm.
There is a DOT areas outside of on-ramps and off-ramps that we need to provide an offset distance. So the potential likelihood of parcel 2, which happens to be 100 Valley Service Road, it's not a feasible location based on the regulations and the DOT required distances.
Okay,
So
thank
we
you.
just show a dash circle just to represent the 750, but it's not right. So moving to sheet CA02A, this again is the central location of the BOD district. This, we have 2 potential or 2 feasible billboard locations. One is on parcel 7. Parcel 7 is 51 Giles Ave. The second potential or feasible location is on parcel 10, which is 400 North Frontage Road. There are in total 5 eligible or 5 potential parcels as part of the district, but based on meeting required frontage, distance, and site considerations, there are 2 that we schematically laid out on parcel 9, but based on site conditions, environmental constraints, those are 2 non-feasible billboard locations, and we have them shown as a striked out X. So we just really want to underline that the BOD district is 13 parcels from north to south. Of those 13 parcels, there are 7 feasible locations, and here are 2 more of those locations. And then moving to CA02B, we wanted to identify this because this was something that was discussed last time, which was really visual impact. So on this particular exhibit, this is that same area, central location, the Giles Ave, the North Frontage Road sites. One of the discussions last time was physical distance from the proposed billboard or parcels to our neighboring residential or surrounding residential zones. So on this particular exhibit, we show potentially 2 billboard locations going northbound along I-91. If we were to kind of trace to the closest residential zone to the west, this is on the west side of State Street, or more than 5,300 horizontal distance feet from our billboard locations to the residential community on the other side of State Street. With that said, for potentially the Giles Ave site, we are about 1,000 feet south of the closest residential community that's along Sackett Point Road. So we wanted to provide some of those distances, so we had a little bit of a frame of reference, knowing how close our surrounding residential communities are. We've added some of those dimensions on these exhibits for reference, and we're certainly happy to go back and review any of those details. And then the south end of North Haven, which is sheet CA03, we have identified one feasible location. There are 3 parcels here that make up the BOD zone, but one feasible location based on distance to existing billboards on the other side of North Haven. And parcels 12 and 13 primarily comprise of environmental marshlands and could be very challenging to permit. We've currently shown those as non-feasible locations. So again, in total, from north to south as part of the BOD zone, we show 7 feasible locations in the exhibits that we just outlined. And the same illustration shown here on the south end for parcel 11, which is 250 Universal Drive. We have approximately almost 2,000 feet, but over 1,900 feet from that potential billboard location to the closest residential surrounding neighborhood, which would be facing to the east. So we wanted to walk through some of these exhibits. I do have a couple more which are in your packets as well. Sometimes plans are very nice to look at, sometimes they're a bit challenging. So what we're using here, this is some Google Earth imagery, and hopefully everyone can see. I know my body kind of gets in the way a good amount of the time, but these 2 exhibits, the first one is identified as Valley Service Road. We've identified on this Google bird's eye image 2 potential locations based on those maps that we just looked at. We're showing physical distance from these potential billboard locations to more than 1,100 feet to Route 5 for the northmost location, and the southmost location that we're showing more than 1,300 linear feet. By regulation, proposed regulation, there's a required 500 feet separation from residential zones. And we just wanted to show where these billboards may in fact be located. They're approximate, but pretty close to those locations as it relates to surrounding residential communities. This image really helps to show that where the BOD district is envisioned for the town is in fact the area that we hope will impact, and we intend to impact, the surrounding residential community the least. This would be the Route 5 corridor here on the right-hand side. And the second image, I'll pull it here. For reference, this would be the Giles Ave property located in the southeast corner of this image. We had showed before that the closest residential district or community to this potential property was about 1,000 feet to the north, which is along Sackett Point Road. But again, this very long distance that we see out to State Street to the west is more than a mile. It's more than 5,300 linear feet, horizontal feet, from this potential billboard location out to the westmost or closest residential community. And so we think these really help depict where the billboards potentially could be located, what's surrounding them, and some of the distance, just to give a frame of reference of how close or not close we may be to surrounding residential. So Dennis, I'll close there, and I'm sure we'll have comments.
Wait,
but,
I ask you a question.
oh yes, please.
So the first map thing that you showed us,
Yeah.
CA01, I just want to understand why the entirety of Lot 2 can't support a billboard, because it looks like it's only halfway blocked by the DOT red buffer thing, but then if say they were the first one in with an application and that part that looks like they could put it, is there a reason why they couldn't?
To answer your question, that's a great question. So no. So lot number 2 is very viable to be a site. And so this just simply shows that if there was a site located on parcel 2, there would likely then be one opening for parcel 1. So the total number will remain the same, but you're exactly right, that if parcel 2, had everything in order and this was approved and they were the first, yes, half of that parcel is very viable. There are some environmental concerns on that particular property, so that may be of concern because we have noticed that between parcel 1 and parcel 2, there is some environmental wetlands there, but technically it would be outside of the DOT restricted area. And as long as they follow the regulation and provide that 750 buffer, it is a very viable site. But it will not change the total amount of viable sites or feasible sites along the stretch. Yeah.
When I have a similar question.
Yeah.
Regarding sites 8 and 9, it's probably neither here nor there, but those are considered not viable. When you say environmental, do you say there's an issue with inland wetlands or contamination or any of the above?
So on sheet CA, O2A or 2B, either one could be fine. Starting with parcel 8. Parcel 8 does not meet the required frontage as part of the regulation. So that's why it's part of the BOD district. We didn't want the BOD district to be here and then stop and then pick up again. We wanted it to be a continuous district that made sense. But this particular parcel 8, just has a very narrow frontage, just touches the highway right of way. As far as parcel 9 is comprised of existing pond lake that will be very difficult to feasibly find a location for a billboard. So we don't see it as a viable or feasible site for the town.
So if you have inland wetlands though, you're not necessarily removing it from viability just because of inland wetlands.
No, that's that's part of the consideration we have shown here. If one was to be permitted, this would be the locations that it would have to be, depending on the locations of the rest of them. These are all shown at the minimum 750 separation. So again, if parcel 7 was a little higher, that radius could be a little bit different. The lowermost X, which is on parcel 9, is in the midst of the pond. Yes, there could be significant site work to make that a upland location outside of the pond, but in its current state, we didn't see it as a viable or feasible site.
Wayne, when you talked about the regulation, you're talking about the proposed regulation.
That's
correct. Okay. And the 750 radius, that's part of the proposed regulation. Why was 750 feet chosen?
The current, Dennis can back me up, but the current state requirement is 500 feet.
Mhm.
And in order to provide what we think is a thorough application, one that's in line with what we think would be appropriate here, we have decided to be more conservative.
That's what you said last
Proposed
month,
a
yes.
750 foot separation.
And I would say the 750-foot number is one that you find in other communities. What it does is, it minimizes the proliferation. All these filters, all these numbers, as this commission moves forward, if it were to approve this regulation as drafted, it's subject to your amendment at any time. So if you thought, for example, and I'll go through this on our summary, but you said, we're gonna permit 3, and then all of a sudden, they've been wonderful, they have not impacted at all the charm and quality of this town, and you think collectively that there should be more, and that's a change that you can make. You can increase distances, decrease them. What I tried to do is look at regulations, they say many, and I think the vast majority between digital signs is 750. The state does have a 500-foot requirement.
So the infeasible sites are still sites. You're just making an observation about them that realistically they're not likely to end up with an application or billboard.
Yeah, so one of the
They're not
challenges-
prohibited by
They're not,
Yeah.
they're in the district, and so the challenge is to make sure that the likelihood, again, it's a special permit application, should this be approved, is that, whatever considerations this commission deems important to make when looking at a specific location, whether it is, its specific location, what sort of property is it? I mean, there are towns that have approved billboards that are actually in the middle of water bodies. And part of the reason is because you can change the copy remotely, so, right? But,
Sure.
so that was the methodology of the presentation.
I'll
I
second
think what
that.
happens, Alan, is like, you don't wanna give the public a sense that, we're here to, have the wild, wild west, open up the I-91 corridor for as many boards as you can fit. And, that could have been one draft, that was not the one that we chose. Again, we wanted to make sure that there were sufficient filters to provide protections. So if this commission deemed it a prudent act to go forward with this, they had protections knowing that there wouldn't be a proliferation, they'd have an opportunity to take, look at it, see how it works for the town, does it serve the business as well? Does it impact negatively on any of the residential properties? And if the determination later on is no, that it's done well for the business community and hasn't harmed homes, then you can make any changes that staff or commission suggest. Any other questions on that? Just if I can, the second point I wanted to make is, last month there was some discussion about the digital billboards being distracted. So one of the things I made a mention of, and I'm gonna offer it as an exhibit, Mr. Chairman, is that there is a study, it's done by the Federal Highway Administration, conducted a study in 2007, they completed a study in 2010. The draft report was subject to a peer review in 2012, and then the FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, released their report in December of 2013. And they had contracted a company called Science Application International Corporation to study the effects of digital billboards on driver attention and distraction. And I'm going to offer this, and again, the results of the study indicated that digital billboard glances, so when you're driving along and glancing at a board, are well within federal safety standards concerning driver distraction. One of the things that they also concluded that even where there are no billboards in their study, they found that drivers elected to glance at other objects than the road, which I think is pretty normal. You just sort of stare ahead straight at the road. So that when billboards were present, the drivers in their study sometimes looked at them, but not such that the overall attention to the forward roadway decreased. I'm going to offer that as an exhibit. Again, that's a study from the Federal Highway Administration. Groups like Scenic Inc. have challenged it, but it's been cited in the Supreme Court. It's the body of evidence as of now on driver distraction.
So, I was one of the ones that brought that up. So my question about that is that study, because I haven't seen it, I will certainly read it. Does that include the fact that they changed?
Yes.
That talks
That's
about
the key,
changing?
right.
Because I cannot wrap my head around the fact that those are not distracting. Because I gotta tell you, you're driving down and you're drawing the billboards, that's why they're there, right?
Hopefully, right.
And then they go pop. And you're talking about them popping a lot. But I'll be happy to read it, because I've read a number of things that don't say different people's studies, so.
And I'll tell you,
And you
both,
said it's been debunked, so I wanna read it, so that's the definitive, nobody says anything other than that? Is that what your testimony is?
no, the testimony is that there are still groups, environmental groups, for example, Scenic Inc., Scenic of America, I think their name is, they put out studies of their own.
Right.
The outdoor advertising community has put out studies of their own.
Sure.
They don't agree, those two. But this was the
Fair
federal,
enough.
and so what I was trying to point out,
Yes,
this was the Federal
that's fine.
Highway Administration, it wasn't, somebody with an axe to grind doing the study. And they felt it important enough to do the study, because it's an important issue. I suspect the next one will be, what's the impact of people looking at their cell phones while they're driving on the highways? But this was just for.
But you guys aren't proposing self.
Good evening, the North Haven Library, we closing in 30 minutes.
Before we go to-
Computers, computers, and Wi-Fi will be shutting down in 15 minutes.
I'm waiting.
Library card registration, along with all purchases for Bookstore Cafe, must be completed by 7:45. Thank you.
So you have somebody who's gonna talk about illumination, right?
We'll do
So
that.
I'll wait, because I wanted to have a question about that.
Dennis,
I'll wait till the illumination.
Okay, go ahead.
one question, just so it's clear, there's only 3 proposed locations that you're looking at here to put
The regulation proposes a maximum number of approved sites or boards as 3.
yes, and also, if this application were approved, you'd still have to submit a site plan before you broke ground and did anything.
Special permit application have to be filed with this
Right,
commission.
just want to make sure.
Dennis, the I did speak to you about two commissioners. Everyone here to know, we have two commissioners that will be leaving at 9 p.m. So we have Brian will be leaving and Rod will be leaving at 9. So I'm trying to speed this thing up so we can get through this thing real quick. I did speak to Dennis earlier in the evening about that, but if it doesn't work, well, we'll just.
And I took to heart, Mr. Chairman, you said the lawyers usually talk the longest, so.
Well,
I'm trying
that's
to-
it. But we're giving you the longest.
So with that, I'm gonna turn that over, please, to Cheng, who's been, actually, I'm gonna have Dominic introduce him and why, who he is, why he's here, and Maggie Fluman from Canada for this meeting.
Good evening, Chair, members. Good evening, Chair and members. My name is Dominic DiMartino. I'm the applicant. I flew in Chang from Canada. He represents Media Resources. Media Resources is a company that manufactures our digital billboards. So he would have the most information in regards to the lighting, how these boards function. And I was pleased when I spoke to him. I said, Chang, do you understand your NITS? Because it was something that I wasn't familiar with when that question was asked, and he chuckled a little bit over the phone and said, yes, I do. And then he went into about a half an hour or something that I won't understand, but he does very well. So I took the opportunity to fly him in here, and I also would like for him to talk about the ads changing, and when they do change, that it changes instantly. But I'll leave that up to him. So, Chang, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Cheng Tian, Chief Product Architect and Head of Product Engineering for Media Resources. Address for the record is 1387 Cornwall Road, Oakville, Ontario, Canada. So good evening, Chairman and Commission members. So I've been invited to come here to speak and more particularly to answer any questions related to lighting, digital billboard technology, or any associated matter relating to this. I've been doing this for a number of years, probably 15 years now, participating in these types of hearings and offering sort of technical expertise that hopefully is understandable. So I understand there was a question raised last time to discuss the difference between nits and foot candles, because this proposed regulation is oriented around the foot candles measurement. If that's okay with the commission, I'll kind of go on a little bit about the background between nits and foot candles. So first thing is they're both kind of ways to measure or quantify brightness, but they're very different in other respects. So nits is a measure of what we call luminance, and you can kind of think of that as the density of light coming off an object, in this case a digital billboard, but it also applies to things like traffic lights, headlights, everything that emits light. But it's the density of that light and the intensity of the light coming off. And so it is the primary contributor to glare, if there is a glare concern. Foot candles is a measurement of illuminance, which is the impact or the amount of light that's passing through a certain area. For example, that is something that people are concerned about when it comes down to light spill into a residential community or residential neighborhood, because that is the foot candles is the way to quantify that aspect. Both of them, though, however, measure brightness first and foremost. So again, coming back to it, nits is luminance. It's intended to control glare or to measure glare. Foot candles is illuminance. It's intended to measure light impact, light trespass. In this case, in the proposed regulation, it's set as a 0.3 foot candles at 200 feet away from the digital billboard. And actually, particularly I want to comment that is a more restrictive brightness measurement or a brightness requirement than the typical 300 nits luminance measurement. The math works out that way, but that's kind of the general commentary. I could go on discussing that in just blanket terms, but I'd be happy to answer any specific questions.
Could you talk about the set, when the sign changes, how it may not appear that it's changing it so quick?
Right. So another particular part of this proposed regulation is that the signs are intended to change, are required to change within less than a second without any flashing or blinking or any transitioning animations. So if you think about the older, sort of first party or on-premise digital signage technology where they had the flashing animations that try to get you to hold your plants there for a particular amount of time, the digital billboards are under this requirement, and kind of the modern requirements everywhere, is that it is to change every 7 seconds, is it?
No less than 7 seconds.
No less than 7 seconds, at 8 seconds. So that every 8 seconds, there's a change, an instantaneous change, and therefore something new to look at, up to, at most, every 8 seconds. Yeah.
So here was my question.
Thank you.
These billboards are lit up. How far away can you see those billboards? You're driving down the highway, the billboard's up ahead of you, how far away can you see?
That's a very good question. There's kind of 2 ways to interpret that. If it's about how far can you see that there is a digital billboard there, it's strictly speaking, it's line of sight. You know, just like you could see
How far? Straight line, 95 in North Haven goes like this,
as far as the horizon will
pretty much, really far.
You
So,
can see that there is a, however, I would like to caveat, it's only a readable and interesting visual thing when it actually starts to become an actual picture or something that is potentially readable.
and what's that, in your opinion?
That is usually in the realm of a few hundred feet, depending on the
You're
size.
telling me you can only read those billboards when you're in a few hundred feet? Less than a football field? So 100 yards away, you can't read these billboards?
No, I'm saying from approaching that about 1,000 feet
Yeah,
to when you're passing by the billboard, that is usually considered the readable range.
so the people that are living 1,000 feet away can see these billboards?
In this case, I think we had this conversation.
In this case here, the 3 boards that I'm here tonight to try to obtain, I can say that there will be no houses, they'll see my 3
I heard
boards.
Giles Avenue at 1,000 feet, did I not?
But the 1,000 feet of Giles Avenue, you're seeing the tail of the board. So the board in the back has a pie shape. As you back off the pie, it becomes harder to see it. The house that's 1,000 feet away is at the end of the board. I went there this weekend and actually had a meet and greet at 10 o'clock at one side and noon at the other side. Took a look at the vantage point from that house. Those 2 houses there would never be able to see that digital billboard at all. So if you look over top of the Kelly Park building to do so.
So are you telling me, because this is what I want to know, and I'm sure some of these people want to know, nobody who lives in this town is going to be able to see these billboards from their house?
The 3 billboards that my team is trying to get approved, unless you're driving.
You're
on
trying to
I-
get a whole, you're
No.
trying to get a whole regulation.
No, we have, but inside of this overlay district, we've identified sites. I'm only concerned about getting my 3 sites approved. What happens after that? You guys may fall in love with it, you may want more.
No, that's not the way it works. The overlay district is letting anybody come in and put them in wherever they want. So you're saying that you want 3 that nobody could see.
I can
Is
tell you-
that-
I can only tell you that my 3, no one can see.
But there's
And
not your
and-
3.
But you have full discretion. If you think that there are sites that will be seen, you have full discretion to deny it. It's a special approval. You guys essentially.
Let me, I think he's not answering the question, I'm sorry, with respect to that you're asking. All of the filters that were placed in the regulation were designed to minimize the impact on any residential property, clearly. The regulation that was last before you had a 100-foot distance from residential, this is 500 minimum. I think that when you have, the boards are, from the regulation, they're V-shaped, the faces are V-shaped, no more than 35 degrees off of facing the highway, so they're facing the highway. You get some spill, and I'll have Cheng talk about this, from the edge, what Don was talking about on the boards, there is some spill over to the sides. But those lumens, the board itself is angled, there are louvers that are angled the light away from behind, because it doesn't really benefit to provide information behind, but to the traveling public. So these are earmarked for the highway. That's where the advertisers want to go, that's where the outdoor companies want their ads to go. They want to minimize the impact to the rear. And so I think what we were hoping to provide information is that the locations within the billboard overlay district, whether the ones that Dominic's interested in or not, that they were located so that any applicant would have to come to this commission, would have to present sufficient evidence that they met those filters. And those filters are that it can't impact, that there can't be any of this light spill within 500 feet of any residential district. So you would have control on each individual application that came in before them. And what I'm talking about is, and Dom's talking about the next step potentially if this was successful. What I'm talking about is a regulation that provides the sort of safeguards. I'm not trying to be presumptuous, but I think you would want. I mean, that's, if I was sitting there, I want to make sure there were safeguards on this regulation so that if someone comes in, they're just not granted indiscriminately. If you're in the billboard overlay district, we just have to grant them. That's not what it says. And that's why there are those sufficient, in my opinion, sufficient safeguards to make certain that what we say is true, that there will not be a negative impact on the residential properties. And that really,
So the difficulty I have with that is what you mean by negative impact.
okay.
So, negative impact, if you're sitting in your house and you can look through your window and see the billboard, to me is a negative.
But you're also gonna be seeing if you can see the billboard, the front of the billboard, not the back of it,
Yeah, no.
then you're looking at the road. And you're looking at the highway lights at the same time. You can't be looking at the front of the billboard.
But I know, but the highway lights, they're stuck with it. And the road, we're stuck with, the 95%.
Right.
You're asking to put something else up there.
Which is no
So
brighter.
for the people that live here, I want to make sure they're not gonna have to see them.
All right, then perhaps that's what you need to comment on. My understanding is, and you know, Larry's a little bit of expert on everything, but you know, my understanding is that the light emanating from the billboard is not intended to provide anything but information. The light's got to be going down to the drivers. That's its intent. So it is no brighter than the highway lights that sit about 50, 40 feet tall, and the lights of the traffic that are going north and south or east and west in that location. But perhaps you can address the impact of the lumens or illumins emanating from the board.
Good evening, the North Haven Library will be closing in 15 minutes. Please begin to make your final selections for checkout now. Thank you.
Dennis, as James doing that,
Yeah.
could you talk about what other kind of light emanating from the billboard, the spill, the haze and things like that go around lights? I mean, we had tennis courts that were going in, there were lights coming up and there was a glow around those sorts of things.
Certainly, that, yeah, I can try to address that as well. First, the first point is that, in this case, I think that 1,000 foot is, based on where the proposed regulation sits, I think that's the smallest it's going to get, right? Based on to any existing residential. So that this is from what I've seen of it so far. I'm not an expert on this particular regulation, but from what I've seen so far, that is the limiting case, 1,000 feet. Now the thing about light impact is light impact decreases very rapidly with distance. It follows something called the inverse square law. So you can imagine for a certain amount of light emitting like this, it's got to cover this much, at this distance, it's got to cover this much area, it's spread out of this much area. As it increases in distance, it's got tremendously larger, the square of the area increasing as it grows in distance. So there's less and less density of light going out. So following that rule, right now this proposed regulation is set to be regulated at 200 feet, 0.3 foot candles. So at the 1,000 foot, even if it were fully visible, which I believe, in our clear that it's not, in the worst case scenario, it's already 5 times further than the 200 foot distance. And by the inverse square for the math behind that, it has dropped, it's increased 5 times the distance, and it's decreased 25 times, 5 squared, 25 times in illuminance. So, 0.3 foot candles has dropped now 96%, right? Down at the 100 foot, and down to a level which is, I think, 0.01 foot candle roughly, and that puts it in the realm of completely natural things like it's less than the foot candles given off by the moon. It's in the realm of very, very low, to the point where it's considered negligible. And, oh, sorry, about the haze. Same thing applies to the haze, that may surround a kind of glow around the display, anything that illuminates.
Yeah.
If there's high humidity in the air, snow, things that reflect. But the good thing here is that no matter what that source of light is, it follows that same inverse square law, and it drops by, again, a massive 96% by the time it gets the nearest possible. At the 5,000, it's just, you'll see it, if you look directly at it and you manage to have line of sight, you'll see a little dot in the distance, but there's no way to tell that it's there unless you're looking directly at it.
Dennis?
Those are the three issues that I had noted, unless others recall something that I missed. But again, I had it as the issue of distracted drivers. Again, I'm going to offer the report from the Federal Highway Administration, the nits versus foot candles, and the concept of lighting, and ensure that it doesn't have a negative impact, at least from our perspective, unreasonable negative impact on residential properties. And then also to try to give you an idea as to how the billboard overlay district was designed. I think there was a concern when we said at the first meeting that there were 13 possible properties in that location from New Haven to Wallingford. Now we try to address the fact that as a practical matter, it appears that maybe given the 750-foot circumference restriction, that as you approve 1 or 2 or 3, you're concurrently knocking out some of the other parcels, so you'll be reducing the numbers. And that's not by chance, that's by plan, because at the end of the day, the draft is designed to prevent a proliferation where someone comes in here and says, I have this as a matter of right. Well, first of all, it's a special permit, so it wouldn't, but in any event, I want to make sure that this commission felt comfortable that the language in there was limited. We want to make sure that there was as many protections in there as we could find that were reasonable, so that there would not be a proliferation. That was the basic premise behind it, Mr. Chairman.
And one more thing I want to add. I've done something that I've never done in any other application in basically my career. I took a half-a-page ad in the Citizen magazine, which is a weekly paper here locally. In that magazine, I actually paid to take a half-a-page, and I offered a meet and greet of the applicant at both locations, one at 10 a.m. and one at noon. I understand that you're concerned for residents. That's what we do. That's what the board is here for. But I will tell you that we only had one person come out to the meet and greet at the Giles Avenue, and it was a person who was just interested to see what the spin was, and we talked briefly for 15 minutes. But there were no other people that engaged us. I've also had the opportunity to meet a number of people. Businesses as well as residents of North Haven while I've been putting this application together. I've gotten an overwhelming amount of support. I met with the Rotary Club, they wished me well. I went to Wine and Roses, spent an hour there, spoke to people. A lot of people there, again, wished me well. I didn't have anyone come up to me negatively and say, hey, what you're doing we don't like, back and forth. I'm an approachable person. I'm a very reasonable person. If somebody came and said, hey, listen, hate the idea, that's their opinion. It is what it is. I thought it was worth mentioning that we did go to each site. We were there for a half an hour. In both sites, one person showed up. So, I mean, there's been plenty of articles written inside of the Advisor and the Citizen. There's some people behind us here. They're going to either be for or against it. I believe that, I know I have 148 members of the community that signed a petition. I have 75 businesses signed a petition, and I believe that between the 5 top businesses we have in North Haven and the other 70, they probably employ somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000 people. I mean, there's a lot of interest to get this done. Post-COVID, this is something I think is very good for small businesses, and I would hope that you would review these as favorable for the community.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask, there are some business people who have taken time out, as all people tonight have, from their personal lives to come here, and I know that you know, after maybe a couple of speakers, then I will ask for a show of hands of who's here to support the application. I know the gentleman will be leaving, so I don't want to take away any time from those who want to speak in opposition. So I'm going to just have a couple come to the microphone and address this commission, if that's okay. Whoever's interested.
Yeah,
You wanna do?
yeah, we'll open this, we good with that?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, we're good with that? Ellen? Okay. I'll open this up to the public now by a show of hands. Dennis, you want to take a look
I
at it?
think you wanted to speak with
Just a couple to speak first.
Oh, okay,
and
you
then-
wanted to
and then
speak
we'll-
first?
in support.
In support, yeah. Who was it?
Yeah.
Who was going to speak up?
No, you're gonna have 3 minutes.
Good sports are not, probably not.
Now it's 3 minutes.
No, you need to speak into it because that's how it gets recorded.
Chris Edge, name, 240 Kennedy Road, in Berlin.
I'm sorry,
Chris Edge, 240 Pendleton Road in Berlin.
Dawn?
Berlin.
What do people think about billboards? A lot of different things, both positive and negative. But where should they be? Industrial zones along I-91 is where. 3 billboards will bring in between $75,000 and $100,000 in annual tax dollars to North Haven. As most of us know, the state of Connecticut is cutting support to suburban communities in favor of other parts of our state. In addition, I would ask you to look at who and what would be put up. I have known the applicant for over a decade. In that time, I've seen the DiMartino family regularly use the resources, including existing billboards, to promote nonprofits, community efforts, and other fundraisers. The taxes of potential community benefit organizations and even families that have the resources for billboard advertising must be weighed against the concerns brought forth this evening. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice job.
How you doing? My name is Jason Raposo. I just currently purchased 132 Middletown Ave, the old Formosa Sushi Restaurant. Been doing business with Dominic for about 8 years now. In research, it shows that 70% of people that advertise are small businesses like myself. Myself and Javier back here have been advertising for a long time. Not to mention Amber Alerts that he doesn't get paid to put on. I'm a part with Addiction Services as well. I've been in recovery for 19 years. My brother passed away.
The North Haven Library is closing in 5
Get 2 more
minutes.
seconds.
Please rewind. Check out at this time. Thank you.
When my brother did pass away, he did a GoFundMe on 2 of his billboards on 91 going towards Meriden, Connecticut, which got great outreach for my family to get funeral services and whatnot. He's not just in it for the business, he's always done happy birthdays, done engagement. I've seen him do so many different things on his billboard. Me opening up in North Haven, I've been having my trials and tribulations. Zoning's been good, but building's been hard. Being honest with you, the building department's been really rough, but I'm getting through it. But I'd like to welcome his business into this town because I would be utilizing his services as well. That's all I have to say.
Jason, can you
Thank you
spell
so
your
much.
last name?
Raposo, Raposo.
Thanks.
My name is Rick Delarocco. I'm a 19-year resident of North Haven. I ran a business out of this town for 13 years until I sold it a few years ago. I've done a lot of business with Dominic. I've also utilized the billboards from my own company as well. And I'm always going to be in favor of North Haven resident of anything that adds to the tax base without a lot of town liability. I think he's a great businessman, does great things for the community, and I think that should be taken into consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Pete. TJ Crisanti, 321 Bassett Road, North Haven.
I'm sorry.
Also, TJ Crisanti, Crisanti. I also own multiple businesses at 332 Old Maple in North Haven. Known Dominic for many, many years. Also been involved in many years with the Little League and youth football in town. I think that just having these billboards just for those purposes alone would be huge for our town. I mean, as far as getting signups, fundraisers, all the things that he's been willing to do in the past, from firefighters, up the first tragedies we had here in town with firefighters, helping out that family, running fundraisers for free, He's not the type of guy that's here to take money, not care about neighbors. He does everything he does 1,000%. I mean, you know, as far as flying someone in from Canada to answer questions, that's the type of guy that he is. You're not gonna have issues, and you know, as far as the tax base goes, I think that's gonna do nothing but help as well. So I appreciate all your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
I was gonna do the show of hands after.
Yeah, we
What happened to that?
I thought we were at the bridge.
We're gonna go just 8 o'clock, how's that? Give you another hour.
There you go.
John Malavenda.
I'm sorry,
John Malavenda. 210 M-A-L-A-V-E-N-D-A. 210 Greenswood, Cheshire. The digital billboards are, you know, anything wrong with this, and it's a good benefit to the community. As somebody said earlier, you know, amber alerts, silver alerts, you know, all kinds of announcements for the town. And it does help small businesses today. I mean, I'm in the green business, and you know, talk about green, you know, so we can save trees, you know, go digital, you know, advertising. But it is, you know, cost effective for small businesses. And, you know, as businesses grow, as you know, increases your tax base. Thank you.
We're gonna show hands here, some along the line. Dennis.
Mark and Mary Menotti. We own the Music Center of North Haven, 473 Washington Avenue. We've been in this town a long time. We've been here since '87. We've been in business longer than that. And literally, we've seen this town when it was in its infancy, and now things change. We started doing billboards years and years ago. It was phenomenal for our business, and it was so expensive we couldn't touch it. The DiMartinos have been gracious enough to not only provide billboards at affordable prices for small businesses, because even though we're a 5,000 square foot unit, we're still a small business. And in today's day and age, you can't just live on just one set of media, okay? Whether it's print, whether it's radio, you just can't do it anymore. You have to do the whole spectrum. Now, coming from experience, we decided to try a billboard with the DiMartinos off exit 15, 16 area. This is area that we never are able to touch. I've already received 3 new students from those billboards. That's huge for us, okay? That's huge. That keeps us going. I mean, you know, we're always focused on these large corporations that will run you no matter who is here. But these small businesses are dying. I know so many of that have gone down the tubes because they can't get their word out. Nobody reads newspapers. Nobody does. Well, you know, who says what? A certain people read this. A certain people that you have to do the whole spectrum in order to keep your business flowing. So my vote is always for something like this because it doesn't really impact anybody. I think they're being very mindful on what they're doing, where they're doing it. If they were in my back, let's put it this way, at my studio, I turned around, now I got apartments everywhere. I mean, it's not a great thing. I don't care if it's commercial, but it impacts everybody, okay? Whether it's zoned or not. Something like this is really not impacting. I've actually gone over there to look at it because I'm very curious too. I want our town being beautiful. I love our town. You know, I come from Bridgeport originally, and that's you know what it is. You know? So I refuse to continue that. I know my time is limited. I'm very sorry to keep going, but my vote is always for that. I thought it was great. The area definitely would work.
Mary Menotti, 473 Washington Avenue. I agree with what is going on here, but there's a couple of points that were brought out that I'm thinking, why reinvent the wheel? These billboards are already gracing the I-91 corridor. As far as I'm concerned, this is just an extension of that. It just happens to fall in North Haven, but it's an extension of that. And I think that it's very useful, it's very helpful, even to post an Amber Alert at some point. That is so useful, to have an Amber Alert come on, we are aware. So on that note,
Thank you.
I'm going to pass it off to the next person.
Dennis?
This will be our final.
We get 3 minutes, right?
Yes, 3 minutes.
My name is Dominic Piuzzi.
We own the UC Gourmet Food Market here in North Haven, and also a 20-year resident of North Haven. I just want to keep it short and sweet. I'm in full support of this. It's a great vehicle for our town to advertise. That's it.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Board. Thank you again for taking time. My name is Zachary Cassiver. I live on Sentinel Hill Road, North Haven, Connecticut. Zachary Cassiver, Sentinel Hill Road, North Haven, Connecticut. Appreciate everybody taking the time to be here again tonight. I was here at the last meeting, here again today. I'd like to address a lot of Mr. Giuliotti's concerns because I think they were well addressed in the proposal, and specifically you addressed, line of sight, and I've gone to these locations personally, and I would encourage you guys to as well. But there is no line of sight, absolutely no line of sight between any residents' homes and these specific locations. I think that's also very important. Me, my family, a couple of them are here tonight. We helped Dom get the signatures from 75 businesses and almost 150 people. In addition to a lot that are in the room tonight, there is a village supporting this thing, and there was not one person that I talked to. I was born and raised in North Haven, played football here, that said this would be a bad idea as long as it's done carefully, and it is done carefully. As Dom said, and everybody on his team said, you guys have the authority to approve individual sites within whatever jurisdiction you guys want that are appropriate, that are also not in the line of sight of residents. It's done incredibly carefully with the residents in mind, and there's a village supporting this effort. And at this point, I don't really see a reason why this should not be approved. It's good for the town all around, it's good for the businesses. Overwhelming support of citizens and local businesses support it. It should get approved. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm just gonna ask those people who have come out tonight to support the application, if you could just show by raising your hands and show the commission why you appeared.
Support.
In support.
Okay, overwhelmed with the support.
No, you're not.
Very good. You have certainly done your homework here, Don. You got the gang here.
So there's
Now, we also want
30
to-
people.
Huh?
About 30 people.
Take his number, how many do you think there were?
Alan's better get 30.
Okay, whatever.
Sometimes it's two hands, that's.
60.
Lot of people.
A lot of people, right. There's a lot of people. Okay.
With that, Mr. Chairman, we've completed the main portion of our presentation. I did ask at the very end, you're gonna ask people who may want to speak in opposition. I just wanted 2 minutes at the end, just to sort of do a summary.
We'll give it to you.
Said that all along.
Absolutely. Excuse me, Dennis, I have a couple more applicants here that are business owners that I've asked to come in here. So please, just I've 2 or 3 more people that I need to have speak. One is Al from Farmers Market. Dominic is a local electrician. There's just a couple more people I'd like to give an opportunity to speak.
Again, Al Lauro, L-A-U-R-O, Farmers Market. I just wanted to say that we deal with, Dominic now, we have a billboard in Meriden on I-81 going north, and just found them to be a reliable, dependable, and honorable company. Because we have to get down and done immediately, and it's never an issue in any area of doing business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dominic Liucci, and I'm a resident of North Haven for the last 35 years. I also have a business here in North Haven for the last 30 years. I'm a security and electrical contractor. And I totally agree with Dominic and Dominic is also a dedicated member of our community. He's been actively involved in supporting local initiatives and contributing to our well-being of our town for many, many years. His business has been a source of employment for our neighbors and a source of support for local charities. This billboard project is not just about promoting his business. It's also about investing in the growth and development of our community. This billboard can serve as a valuable means of communication for our town. It can be used to promote local events, share important community announcements, emergencies, even provide space for public service and messages. It could become a tool for strengthening our sense of community and keeping all our residents informed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
This is the last one, fellas. Good evening, my name's Phil Diana, I'm the Director of Buildings and Grounds for the Board of Education for the town of North Haven. I speak tonight not just for myself, but I spoke with the Director of Community Services. We both believe this is gonna be a great thing for the town to get information out quickly for different programs that Community Service has, for the Board of Education, for their sports programs. It's a win-win. It doesn't hurt or cost us anything from the fire department, police department. It's a tax win. I think we should approve this and we should prove it again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Toby was last, you're last, okay. Anyone who'd like to show a hand for the opposition of this application?
Let's say 10.
Don't forget, after last week, we still outnumbered them from last week.
Joe, you wanna talk?
You can
Yeah.
talk.
Come on.
I'm ready.
Okay, 3 minutes. I got a timer.
We're not good.
Print media is not there. We get these thrown on our driveway every week.
Excuse me, sir.
Joe DiMartino, Papa Lane. We all get these in the mail. Print media is not there. 3 minutes can't start yet.
No, it already did.
Then, I just gotta reiterate some of the stuff from last week. Amber Alerts, I called the police department. They said you gotta apply to the police department. The police department has to apply to the state police. It goes up on the electronic billboards. If you got your phone registered with the town, you can even get it on your phone. We don't need any more Amber Alerts. They're on the electronic signs. We got one right here, exit 9.
55% of it.
Hold on.
No, please.
Hold on. Everybody was quiet here when they were talking, so please be quiet and relax.
And we all know that zone changes are some of the most dangerous things that you can have. Okay? So you have to take into consideration that a zone change is a precedent. You let that happen, you'll have people in here and want a zone change for everything else. All right, it's detrimental to bird life. It's aesthetically but ugly. It adds to light pollution. It does distract driving. Exit 9, we're already overloaded. We don't need any more people coming off exit 9. I looked at these petitions. These petitions are padded. He's got 2 businesses. He's got 2 parcels in town, so he lists both of them. 200 Valley Service Road and the Giles Avenue. He's got both of them. So he's doubling it up. There's another guy, the individuals, there's a guy named Hop Perkins. He gives you an address of 455 Sackett Point Road. You know what that is? That's Connecticut Container. That's the factory. I also checked, Mr. Hop Perkins doesn't pay any taxes on cars or houses. There are several of those on the petition. People who don't live at that address given, and they don't pay any taxes on cars or houses. It's padded. His 75 businesses are padded. His 140 something, it's all padded, it's questionable. There's a lot of stuff that's questionable on that petition. So, just last week we had more people than they had people. How many people in town that are our age are gonna come out 2 months in a row? That's what's happening. All these people that are talking here are mostly business owners. Of course, they're for billboards and advertising. Please,
You have 10 seconds, Joe.
please reject this petition like we did
3
all the other
minutes.
ones.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, Joe, thank you. Next.
Fair weather planning and zoning people. You've probably never been to any meetings in your whole life before this.
Mary White, Summer Lane. The billboards will be flipping minimum every 7 seconds. They're designed to catch drivers' attentions. Drivers can't help but look at digital billboards. There are significant results from a 2016 study called A Field Study on the Effects of Digital Billboards on Glance Behavior During Highway Driving. Researchers studied the participant drivers' eye positions relative to digital billboard glances going southbound and northbound on a highway north of Boston. Researchers found A, drivers approaching from both directions, the driver's eye positions made more off-road glances in the direction of the billboard. B, drivers glance at the billboard more during the switch between ends. C, they found northbound drivers used the brakes significantly more while approaching the billboard and made steering wheel corrections after passing the billboard. Relative to how long drivers spent looking on and off the road before, during, and after the approach, researchers found drivers overall spent significantly less time visually oriented on the road while approaching the billboard. The researchers believe that digital billboards have the potential to be dangerous because more glances and longer glances away from the road are associated with more frequent automobile accidents. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration released sobering statistics of an increase in traffic fatalities. In 2020, 38,824 deaths in motor vehicle crashes. In 2021, 42,915 deaths in motor vehicle crashes, a 10.5% increase. In 2022, 42,795 deaths in motor vehicle crashes, a small decrease of 120 deaths, but overall the number of deaths remains concerningly high. Although roadway conditions, crumbling infrastructure, and other related factors contribute to the tragic trend of increasing traffic fatalities, the impact of distracted driving can't be ignored. In 2019, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration attributed 9% of fatal crashes, 15% of injury crashes, 15% of all police reported motor vehicle crashes, traffic crashes to distracted driving. Billboards as a source of distraction are included. When a driver takes their eyes off the road to glance or read a digital billboard, they are distracted, period. They are looking to change the town of North Haven zoning regulations for the benefit of 7 to 10 property owners. The whole town does not benefit. 24,243 people do not benefit. Clearly, other locations in the billboard overlay district will negatively impact neighbors. How can you approve an amendment you know will negatively impact neighbors in the future? And that's if you believe these locations will not. Conclusion, remember,
Okay, Mary.
Tracy,
That's it.
that's it.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
I just wanna say, they're looking for permission to bring them in.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, next. Go ahead.
My name is Michael Gray. I live at 32 Nelton Avenue, North Haven. And it's also been mentioned about various businesses, how long they've been in North Haven. I've been here all my life, been here since 1968. They're close to the highway. I might get some of that bleed off of one of the signs. I'm not supposed to repeat what other people have said, but I think there'd be an eyesore to North Haven. I think they would be unsafe, causing more accidents. And remember, it's going to be our firefighters that are going out there to clear up these messes that go on out there. And it's our taxpayer dollars that are paying for the equipment and then putting these people in jeopardy. Taking care of these messes. And that's basically my opposement to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Next. Come.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It records it, you need to hold it.
Oh, it records it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I would like to know,
With your name,
You need to speed it up.
Ellen Less,
I know.
260.
Yes.
What's the last?
They need to know.
Ellen Less,
Less
L-E-S.
S, like more or less. I'd like, first of all, I read The Citizen and the advisor. Like every week we get it in our,
Miss, this way.
oh, okay. We get it in our, facility. I have never seen what you are saying that is that you have posted.
And you missed it because it was in
Yeah,
there.
okay.
In the,
You
in
gotta,
the
you
advisor.
gotta speak to the commission.
In the advisor or the citizen. I have never seen it. And I read it through every week. So I don't know where they're getting it.
They'll address that later.
Let's see.
You wanna pick it up a little bit, miss, because you're against something.
I have never seen an Amber Alert on a billboard, and I travel the highways quite a bit. The only time I see it is when, I've seen it is when those big box things that the state has put up. You know, that tells you about traffic ahead, or I have seen an Amber Alert on those. But I've never seen one on a billboard, light up while those, they're on the big box things from the state. So I just wanna say that. I think who designs,
This way.
who designs the billboards?
Okay,
They'll
they'll answer
they'll
that.
answer that for you.
Okay.
They're gonna answer later.
Oh, okay. I think you have to ask yourself, is this gonna bring any more, is this gonna make North Haven any more beautiful? No. Is this gonna make North Haven like people from Wallingford who have not accepted this? Are they gonna say, oh, now that North Haven got billboards, you know, we're gonna move to North Haven? Are we gonna get more people to put more businesses in North Haven from other towns? I would say no. And, is this gonna bring more peace and quiet to North Haven? No. And I hope that when they say you will not see front or back, you did say something about
Thank you.
tobacco. That's it?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Just finish up.
You
If
did
you have a
say
little
that
bit
the
more.
back, I hope this is gonna be put in writing. And what will happen if people start complaining afterwards and saying, that's not true, I can see this front, I can see this back from my house.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next.
Is there anybody else?
Is there anybody else on?
Name is Gary Dickinson, 105 Shaman Avenue, North Haven. I don't think this is a personality issue, this is a business issue. I have questions more from the standpoint of how much green space are we gonna lose to set up the signs? How big are the signs? You talked about a pixel, how many pixels are on each sign? That increases the light intensity. What's the distance from the highway? What's the height of the units? If you go down the highway, you see a whole bunch of different heights. You go up to Meriden, you see one with a lady over there that's a lawyer, and they've cleared the whole side of the roadway, just for view. Does this open up the Merritt Parkway for the same situation? Are we gonna be in a situation soon that people wanna put up signs on the Merritt Parkway in North Haven? Last thing I have to say is, you're talking white lights, you're talking multiple colors. They all attract people entirely differently. If you're looking at a football field, which was a comment, with LEDs, that's a certain color light. However, on the highway, you have multiple color lights on the signs. Also, this section of highway up here is very prone to a lot of accidents. We don't want to put people in a situation where they can possibly have more accidents, which was talked about a few seconds ago about putting our firefighters in a situation where they'd have to open the highway I'm not against this, I'm not for it, I just think we need more information. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Okay, next, anyone else want to speak now? Come on, speak ahead.
White Summer Lane, be careful of the conclusions, DVPs do not distract. A man named Jerry Watchell did a 30-page report from the Maryland State Highway Administration of the inaccuracies of two Outdoor Advertising Association of America reports that DVPs do not distract. He stated they chose to exclude accidents with seniors, accidents that took place in adverse weather conditions, crashes at interchanges. They excluded crashes that occurred beyond the DVBs and excluded accidents that were in a driver's visibility of DVBs. They seek permission to allow DVBs in the town of North Haven. If granted, DVBs will be here forever and the door is open for the big DVB companies such as Clear Channel, Lamar Advertising, and Outfront Media. Only 3 DVBs with 2 faces, so 6 DVBs are proposed for now, according to the applicant. No doubt North Haven would be littered with DVBs if permission was granted, if it grows in the future. Please protect the public's health, safety, and welfare. Protect us from distracted drivers glancing, reading DVBs. Protect us from the increase in accidents. Protect residential and commercial areas as stated in the town of conservation and development. Protect our property values. Protect us from visual light pollution. Protect our power grid from the constant strain of DVBs, which is going to be a big issue. It's all about saving power, and we're going to be, look to shut things off, and this kind of is counter to that. Please vote no to the proposal.
Okay,
Thanks, Tom.
Anyone else? Anybody in the back that want to speak? Now is your time. Okay. Seeing no hands up there, Dennis.
All right. Sure, I'm just gonna pass out a little primer, makes it a little bit easier as I do my summary. It's really, it's entitled Differences from Previous Billboard Application Proposals to What's Before You Tonight. I'm gonna finish with that. I just want to go through some of the comments that were made by the public. Oh, and I do want to offer this, Alan, I'm gonna give you as an exhibit the Federal Highway Administration report that I've cited a couple of times.
Okay, we'll mark the commission submission exhibit 2A. We'll mark the Federal Highway report 2B, and 2C will be the differences from previous proposals.
Thank you. And it's part of the summary, I guess, that I have before you, but I just wanted to point out that a number of the concerns that have been addressed, talk about the impact, possible impact, not probable, possible impact of driver distraction and the effect on motor vehicle deaths and motor vehicle accidents. And number 9 of the memo I just passed out to you, the earlier proposals had no memorandum of support from the chief of police, and I don't think that's a small matter. This application has a support memo from the police chief, which should have been in your packets as I understood it. I didn't see it till today. I was pleasantly pleased to see it. I mean, here's the person who's the head of the police department has indicated support for the proposal. I have to imagine, Mr. Chairman, that that's not something that the chief does lightly. I'm sure that in many communities where I presented applications of a similar nature, that there have been some communities where the chief has not wanted to get involved, others where the chief has provided memos and support enthusiastically. And so it's nice to see that tonight, because what it does is I think what it does is it reaffirms the empirical evidence, not the reports of, different interested groups, whether it be outdoor advertising interested groups or Scenic America interested groups, whatever it might be, but just in terms of those people who spend their life with public safety, and they have chief of police write what I thought was a really touching memo in support of this suggests that some of the comments made, like from Mr. DiMartino, that you have to apply for Amber Alerts. That may be so if you don't have your own vehicle, your own methodology of having those provided for your own community. And that's one of the things the chief has pointed out in his comments. So in terms of, town benefits, I think the chief makes a very, very good argument of how that benefit is provided to your public safety group. We had firemen speak at the last meeting. I think that that speaks volumes about the way that in today, 2023, the way that these departments look at digital media, digital billboards. I wanted to point out, as I say, that the original applications that I've reviewed, you've had, I think, 3 that I've seen. 2 were withdrawn, 1 was voted down. They provided for static and digital billboards. I think digital is the only way to go. And one of the main reasons, frankly, is the fact that, there's 2 reasons. Static billboards, and Chen could talk about this if you have questions, but all that lighting is away from the board to the board. I mean, for those static billboards. Whereas, at least with digital, the light is emanating out into the road. And there's the protections of having angles on those LEDs and things of that sort. So digital is also the main benefit to a community, is the fact that digital boards in each community that I'm aware where they exist are taxed substantially. They're great revenue generators without having, they're not a drag on your police, your fire, your education, any of your municipal services. So they provide a very substantial tax base because, as you probably know, just as I do, unfortunately, that oftentimes the assessor determines value not based upon what the cost of the boards are, which is probably $750,000, but more often it bases them on the income that they generate. And that's how your taxes are determined. We fill out those forms all the time. Number 2, the last application had the likelihood or the availability, if you will, of boards, static or digital, in 8 zoning districts. None of them residential, to be fair, but you know what, the state of Connecticut will not approve any permit that's in a residential district, so it's not as if they were doing the town of North Haven any specific favor. The 8 zoning districts were not residential. This is only permitted in 2 zoning districts along 91, so 2 industrial zones only. The earlier application had general lighting restrictions saying that it shouldn't have light spill over, and that would be part of your special permit process. This application, we have added specific lighting restrictions. And again, I think as Cheng has pointed out, if you thought it important to add NITS as one of the restrictions, in addition to foot candles, but we're not necessarily opposed to that. I think all of that is fair, but the point is we're trying to be restrictive to give this commission a comfort level of how this has been drafted. Earlier applications said signs could not be located within 100 feet of a residential district. Maybe it sounds like a long way, but we quintupled that. Our proposal is that signs cannot be located within 500 feet of a residential district, a substantial change. The earlier application signs could not be located within 100 feet of any public park, playground, or cemetery. This one has increased that restriction to 200 feet. The typical distance between signs, that which has been accepted in the regulations of the state of Connecticut, is 500 feet. They have to be 500 feet apart, linear, on the same side of the highway. So you could have them across from each other, but you have to be at least 500 feet apart. We've suggested a 750-foot circumferential measurement for each board. Again, that's designed to minimize any even modest chance of a proliferation. We've done that to provide protections for this commission. Earlier application talked about sign-oriented had to be either back-to-back of their faces or V-shaped with no specific limitation. We've added a limitation that those faces could be at an angle no greater than 35 degrees perpendicular to I-91. That's consistent with the modern drafting of regulations for outdoor digital advertising. The most recent application had a maximum number of billboards at first blush of 6. So passing the regulation, 6 would have been acceptable. We've limited that number in our proposal to 3. Again, also trying to be responsive, recognizing that this is not an easy application. We wanted to give you something that made you comfortable in that, and thus the cutting in half of the maximum number of billboards, a number that you could always change if down the road you thought this was a terrific opportunity for the town of North Haven. We have a memorandum of support from the chief of police, as I mentioned, which I think speaks volumes about the application and what has changed over the past 10 years or so. I can tell you that, and Jim may know this, one of the Supreme Court cases, Connecticut Supreme Court case in Middletown, where billboards were denied back in the 90s, was the chief of police's testimony that won the day for the city of Middletown. And here, again, in many communities, things have changed where the police recognize that they are not the distraction creators that people suggest, that some environmentalists suggest, but that they do provide valuable benefits in this modern society. And lastly, I think, the last time I think it was a larger company who just came in with little public support, submitted the application, figured they were, like Amazon or Oz, they were big enough, they come in and just give you the application. This one, we brought in, I'd like to think, I haven't been here as often as you gentlemen, but there appears to be, at least from what I'm seeing in front of this commission, and certainly a show of hands even tonight, the petition that's been supplied to you, that there is an overwhelming support from businesses and from individual residents. I have to believe that this would be unparalleled, that this has really been a very significant show of support on what has historically been a matter that had a lot of nays and very few people coming in to speak in favor. And I wanted to point out just lastly, Mr. Chairman, that so the town has certain benefits. We attempted to identify locations that would not impact on the quality of residential life in the town. We've had the support of the administration, some of the local officials, but the local businesses, and I know I keep repeating it, but I don't think it can be overstated. The business community, many of them, North Haven residents, this is their lifeblood. I know in speaking, for example, with Ferraro's, the discussion was, you order an ad to put in the newspaper or one of those handouts. And by the time the ad gets read by you and I as a consumer, the price of meat is going up, the price of labor is going up, and all of a sudden those ads are not winners for the businesses. That's what digital advertising allows companies to do, to live in the 21st century, to change their advertising, to do it in a way that doesn't impact the environment. There's not people walking through wetlands, climbing up on boards, distracting people in their changing of the signs, working with new vinyls that they're putting up. This is just an immediate switch of advertising, but it's current advertising. So when you have people, we've had people from the print media last month and today talk in favor. But I think that, again, I would hope that speaks volumes to you. We've got support in groups that would heretofore had never supported this kind of concept, but there's a recognition that having digital billboards limited to your highway corridor and providing certain benefits to the municipal public service departments is a positive for the town of North Haven. So I would hope that you would support this.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Anything else from the owners before we cut you out? Okay. From the.
Russ, I'm good. Good to go.
Right. Good to go. Good to go?
Well, there were a couple of minor points that somebody had asked about that we'll let them get to.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just.
Well, he had questions about the size. That was all in the application. Those things were asked about.
I want to see.
Yeah, I was gonna mention
Single or
it.
double-sided?
Well, there's gonna be single-sided, but on a V.
Two phases.
Yeah.
Double-sided.
Yeah, it'll be
So maybe-
single
yeah.
face, but it's not on, there's one face in one way, one face in the other, but on the same post, yeah.
Got that, Mark?
I'm good, yeah. I just want to make sure everyone got addressed, that's all.
Okay. Hold this meeting.
Thank you.
This public hearing is closed.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take a 10-minute break.
Okay, so that everybody understands exactly what's happening. The public hearing is closed. The deliberations, because there's some things that I want to read, are gonna happen next month. So our deliberations, our whole meeting is ending at 9 o'clock. So deliberations will be next month. That means because the hearing's closed, no more input from the public from anybody.
Nobody.
So we wanna respectfully ask that if any of you who, a lot of you know who we are, see us over the next month, please don't come and offer more opinions, any more presentations, no more letters. It's closed. We make the decision based on everything we've heard in our 2 meetings and what's been presented. So we're concerned about that. We're all friends, we're all residents of the town. Don't come to my chairman and tell him, listen, you gotta do this or you don't have to do this. Leave it all alone until next month and then you can yell at us.
Either way.
After deliberation.
After.
After
So
deliberation,
there's
in
no
a lot
right,
you
so-
can say anything you want.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, from this point forward, we're not gonna talk about that any longer from the public. That's
Thank
it.
you.
That's it.
Okay.
So, anybody who wants to leave, please leave now before we get going with the
We
rest.
promise you, we're not gonna talk about it again tonight.
Yep, we're not gonna talk about this at all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
All right.
That was deflating.
Thanks, Tom. So long, Jim.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Boy, I'll tell you what, this is a
Goodbye.
quiet, this is a quiet exit here, I can tell you that. Somebody boy, you come with me.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming out.
Mike, yeah, nice to see you, Mike.
Okay. I think it went, what did I go, deaf?
Huh? Yes, it is nice. Okay. So we'll look at this. Get turned over here and see where we're at now on the site plan. And
Nice.
doing site plans, Pete, you wanna read that in?
Oh, sure, yeah. That's P 23-18. Site plan application of John Carafelli, applicant JPK Unlimited LLC owner relative to 97 Defco Park Road, map 95, lot 27, plan entitled Site Develop Plan, number 90 Defco Park Road, North Haven, Connecticut 06473, prepared by Cristola Engineering LLC, dated 2/19/2021, revised 6/15/2021. Scale 1 inch equals 30 feet, IL 80 zoning district. Oh, 97, okay, thank you.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right, good evening, Jim Preddy, Cristola Engineering, 420 East Main Street, Branford, representing the applicant here. So this building is at the very end of Defco Park Road, all the way down on the left, Pro Clean. Been renovating the building, moving in there. I'm actually here for something that you folks have already approved. In 2020, I think. We got a wetland application approved and a zoning application approved for some minor site improvements, which included changing the loading dock door here and here into drive-in doors. Their business doesn't have a need for tractor trailers, they use smaller trucks, so they won't be able to drive in that building. So, there was some fill and some landscaping improvements in the front and some fill and a retaining wall here so that they can do the same thing in the back. Also some drainage, currently there isn't any drainage on the rear of the site. We're adding catch basin, some infiltration and trying to get some groundwater recharge back in. As I said, this was approved. They at some point decided to not do the fill and metal ramp. So that's back off the table and went back to what was originally approved. So that's why I'm here. There were a number of comments that he had addressed originally. Staff looked at it again, there was a few comments, mostly housekeeping stuff. I think most of it's already been addressed on here, with the exception of adding a new application under the plans. So at this point, I guess I'll answer any questions.
This was approved.
That's correct.
Okay.
It was in 2021, yes.
And just, so
Why
whatever
are we
happened.
here again? If it was
What?
approved?
It expired.
Yeah.
So that's the only problem with it, and actually, there were a few conditions of approval, and Mr. Preddy addressed the conditions of approval,
Yeah.
and they were all set. The bond was never posted, and they didn't consummate it, so to speak.
So are they in this site plan?
Yes, they are, those things have been
Okay.
reflected.
And could you just tell us what those changes are? If there's any changes from
The
the original?
conditions I have is I don't see a dumpster pad with a fence gated enclosure. There's a small, number 11 in the circle, which is a parking count for the rear parking lot that he can add. And he should add the tree species in the parking lots. So some pretty heavy duty stuff.
In the park. Some of the other things that were already addressed, adding in siltation, notes and, signage, separate permit code, things like that. But that's all kind of
It has been.
Confirming that.
Any questions?
No.
One?
Nope. Yeah, so the middle ramp should go, you just fill it in so you can just drive it. Okay.
Good.
Good.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, my only comment has to do with the drive-in ramp in the back there. And in mine's purely from a safety perspective. I just want to make sure that when that wall gets designed and the rail gets designed, that it's designed for vehicle, impact, just from a safety perspective, that's all. And I think that's that's a simple thing to do. So that was really it.
So let me just understand that, because I didn't,
Yeah.
do we need to add anything to our approval?
No, it's on my comments already.
Just with your comments?
Yeah, so they have a retaining wall, we just need to see how is that guide rail gonna be connected to the retaining wall, that's.
As long as it's in your comment.
Once they pick the product, we'll be able to get a detail.
That's fine.
Right. That's it.
Good.
Okay, good. I'm good.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, Kristen. We move on to, we'll get the change of use.
There was one, 565. Others to Pine
And
Street.
6 to Vine Street.
That was this.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Good evening, for the record, my name is Eric Lindquist, Senior Project Manager at Time Bond, 4th Street, Middletown. I'm representing my client, Young Haven Health, for 6 Vine Street facility in Stone Park. You guys should all have a packet in front of you of the requested change that's occurring, so essentially, in order to meet the care of the community that they need to provide and to maintain that level of care they provided to the community for so many years, they needed to add a MRI unit on the site as a temporary condition. When this eventually gets fully designed, they come back to you with another application to show the final, more long-term solution. But for now, there is an urgent need for this in the community, and they're not being able to provide the service that they want. So they're asking to, on the north side of the building, as you'll see in the plan, there's an area highlighted in orange, which is the area we recently came to under the other as well before, to restripe that area because all the accessible parking was moved to the front of the building at the new entrance that they had. So that was all done, and now these are standard spaces over there. But the goal is to pretty much park this mobile MRI unit, which is essentially the trailer section of a tractor trailer truck. They would bag it up there and put it there and provide power service for it in the temporary time so that they could service people with the MRIs.
Yeah, so you just back that in there and just tie it into.
Yeah, the design hasn't been done yet, but essentially what we want to do is on the final condition, there'd be a pad put there. There'd probably be some sort of canopy system or something that would provide better access to it and make it more pedestrian friendly and amenable to the building. But in temporary, it would be just the trailer being backed up there. There's nothing really else really required for it other than the power supply, but it's already a paved area, there's no more impervious coverage. It would just be going over that area highlighted in orange.
What do you consider temporary?
Yeah, it's the amount of time, we're not sure, but it should be less than a year, but I'm not positive on the time frame for now.
That's my only question. It was the exact same one he just had. So this is like a temporary modification of the site plan. That's what we're deciding on?
I think that's correct, and if it made any sense to say, you know, we'll do this for 6 months or a year, and then to say,
Come back, yeah, and tell us where you are.
yeah,
That's fine. Ideally, we'd have a permanent solution before then.
Right.
I know
So
there's
how about
other-
we do 9 months? This is between 6 months and a year.
Whatever you find amenable, we can do. Then we can
Well, I don't
progress.
think anybody's gonna have a problem with it, but just like Paul asked, it's like, sometimes temporary things don't go away.
Yeah.
But you guys have always been very good with this, but
Yeah,
we just wanna make you come back and.
And this is going on at a couple of their other facilities in other areas. I know we're working with them for a Linac unit over in Trumbull, and it's a similar kind of situation, but they're going in with a more permanent solution right away, so.
Eric, the power's gonna be coming from the building, right?
Right.
There's no generators outside, and hours of operation for the MRI unit.
I'm not sure, I'd assume they're during the normal business hours, but I'm not positive.
Good enough.
You're gonna restripe the parking lot?
No, it's just gonna go over existing spaces, so.
7 spaces.
That makes it temporary, thank you.
How many spaces? 7, did you say?
It's a 7 space, yeah, the slab of this is probably, or the size of it's probably about 54 feet or so, so it fits inside those 7 spaces, and it provides the adequate separation needed for anything metallic, so any other cars that would be here, it's not.
Yeah, it looks as though it'll fit in here, as a matter of fact.
It should,
I was there today, took a good look at the project. Looks fine to me. Everybody else, okay?
I'm good.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it very much, have a great evening.
Thank you.
Okay, 410 Sacker Point Road. Install a generator.
Rick Zulu, representing 410 Sack Point Road. Did we get a permit passed for a generator for a building? We already had one building remodeled down there, have a generator in, and just trying to get another generator for a different building.
Same thing.
Same thing.
But this is a permanent modification.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
it's one of the buildings that's against the railroad track and on the north side of that building.
That's gas fired generator.
Gas fired, yes.
Gas, we can, okay. Gas, natural gas.
Yep, good.
Everybody good? Yeah.
Good.
Good enough. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Okay, change of use. 565 Washington Avenue. Office door, Marshall
Arts.
Arts or, looks like it. It looks like it.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Elliot Rosa. That's ELLIOT. Last name Rosa, ROSA. Gentry Drive, Orange, Connecticut. So I'm looking for a change of use, 565 Washington Avenue, unit number 9. Its last use was office use for the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It's been vacant since prior to COVID. And I'm looking to put in a martial arts studio called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in New Haven. I'll service people from the ages of 5 to 65. The programs offered would be self-defense, children, teen, and adult, law enforcement programs, and women-only programs. Hours of operation, Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll have morning classes from 10:30 to 11:30, and then I'll operate on Saturday from 10 to 1 p.m. That's basically it in a nutshell, unless you have any questions.
The only issue I see is that you just excluded 4 out of 6 of the commissioners with your
Well, I
age
was
bracket.
gonna say, maybe you did this before.
Nice.
If you wanna come out and train, you're more than
You
welcome.
know, old people can't do it.
You can, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, any questions? John?
No, that's all
I'm
we
good.
need to know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
I realize it's 9:02, and
Thank you.
I just need to say that Brian and Rod, if you need to go.
Yeah, you guys can
We
go.
can-
We should,
Deliberate at
What
97.
do you wanna do? We can go into deliberations and then continue all the deliberations next month, so you guys can get out of here.
Why don't we
We're
do
not
that?
gonna deliberate.
I'm gonna do
Why don't
it.
we do that right now, and then if you guys wanna go, we'll put the other stuff out without.
Can we approve the minutes so I can get on the website?
Yeah.
Okay?
That too.
Motion to approve
Well,
September.
first you gotta go into deliberations.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
All right, all right.
Sure.
So I'll make a motion to go into deliberations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now approve the minutes so that you can get
You make a motion.
yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second
I'm sorry.
Some-
Brian seconded.
Brian second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And now, should I make a motion to continue deliberations on all the items for tonight until next month, so to our two?
I think we're just in deliberations, how's that?
Just end deliberations and,
And
which
just-
means that we haven't decided all those applications.
What about the changing?
So, you see,
I mean, I
that's
think
my
we-
question too, the change of use probably wants to go in.
Yeah.
I don't think we've got anything tough.
No,
to
no,
say.
let's,
Yeah.
whatever you can deliberate.
But
with.
yeah, let's,
Yeah.
All right.
Give me a motion, Jim, please.
Well, first, why don't, so do we need to continue, do a motion to continue deliberations with regard to 2317, the billboards?
yes.
So I'll make a motion to continue that one, the deliberations
I'll
on that
second
until next
that.
month.
Okay.
Second.
And the motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good.
Now I'll make a motion to approve 97 Defco Park Road.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, let's get the next one. Motion to approve the 6 Divine Street,
So I'll make a motion to allow the owners of 6 Divine Street 9 months modification to the site plan to allow the temporary, mobile MRI to be placed on the lot.
And I'll
with a restriction
second.
of 9 months.
I'll second that.
all seconds it? Okay, good enough.
Good.
The,
You gotta take a look.
all in favor?
Aye.
Good. Any motion for 410 Second Pond?
Okay, I make a motion to approve the permanent,
Permanent generator.
it's a generator platform, right? Or
Yeah.
generator.
Gas generator.
At 410 Second Pond.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Change of use.
That's good. Now we've got,
565.
565 Washington Avenue. For the motion to approve the martial arts studio, somebody?
I'll make a motion to approve the martial arts studio at 565 Washington Avenue.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And we did the minutes, so that's it, we're done.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, the second? I second.
All in favor?
Okay.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.